Sun in the fifth house. Welcome to Sun in the fifth house in Synastry. In this overlay, we explore what happens when one person's sun, their core identity, vitality, sense of self, and life force, falls into another person's fifth house, the house of creative self-expression, pleasure, play, romance, and the particular joy that comes from being fully, unself-consciously alive. Where the fourth house governs the interior self that exists in private, the fifth house governs what that self produces when it is given permission to shine. It is the territory of art and performance, of desire and delight, of the child within the adult who still knows how to play without requiring a reason. When someone's sun lands here, it does not simply visit this territory, it ignites it. And ignition of the fifth house is among the most immediately recognizable experiences in synastry, which is precisely why it deserves careful attention. The sun person brings their identity, their radiance, and their essential sense of self directly into the space where the house person keeps their creative and romantic life. They arrive, in effect, as an audience and a collaborator at once. And for the fifth house, that combination is almost irresistible. From the house person's perspective, the sun person may feel like the most compelling presence they have encountered in some time. There is a quality of aliveness in this connection that is difficult to manufacture and equally difficult to ignore. The house person may find that their own creative impulses are heightened in the sun person's company, that they are more playful, more expressive, more willing to take risks with self-presentation than they ordinarily would be. The sun person's presence seems to give them permission to enjoy themselves without apology, and that permission, for many people, is rarer and more valuable than it sounds. This is one of the overlay's most generous qualities. The fifth house is where we go to be delighted, and the sun person, falling here, tends to be a source of genuine delight. The house person may experience the relationship as suffused with a quality of joy. Not the deep, rooted contentment of the fourth house, but something brighter and more immediate. The pleasure of being in the company of someone whose presence feels like an occasion. Romance is a natural feature of this overlay. The fifth house governs romantic love in its most exhilarating early form, the phase before commitment and complexity, when everything is still charged with possibility. The sun person falling here tends to activate exactly that quality of feeling. The house person may find themselves experiencing a kind of romantic excitement in this connection that they associate with being much younger, a giddiness, a heightened awareness of the other person, a tendency to idealize. This is not always proportionate to the relationship's actual depth, and that disproportionality is worth noting. The fifth house is the house of theatre, as much as it is the house of romance. It is the house of the role played, the persona projected, the self that is offered to an audience in its most polished and appealing form. When the sun falls here, there is a risk that both people begin to perform for each other rather than simply be with each other, that the connection sustains itself on the pleasure of the dynamic rather than on genuine knowledge of one another. Early stages of sun in fifth connections can be intoxicating in precisely this way, and intoxication is, by nature, not a stable foundation. From the sun person's perspective, there is often an experience of being genuinely appreciated in this connection. The house person's response to them, their delight, their receptivity, their willingness to be drawn out, is deeply flattering to the sun, which is oriented at its core toward being seen and celebrated. The sun person may feel more themselves in this person's company than in almost any other context. Their identity expands here. They are encouraged. They are enjoyed. This is nourishing, but it carries its own complexity. The sun person may begin to associate the relationship with a particular quality of self-esteem that becomes difficult to access elsewhere. If the house person's admiration is the primary source of that feeling, the sun person develops a subtle dependency, not on the person exactly, but on the reflection the person provides. When that reflection becomes inconsistent, or when the ordinary friction of a real relationship introduces less flattering mirrors, the disillusionment can be disproportionately sharp. Children and the question of legacy are themes that may arise in this overlay. The fifth house governs procreation in the broadest sense, the impulse to create something that carries one's essence forward. The sun person's presence here may activate in the house person a deeper awareness of that impulse, whether it manifests as a desire for children, for a significant creative project, or simply for a relationship that feels generative rather than merely companionable. Playfulness, when genuine, is one of this overlay's most enduring gifts. When both people are able to move past the performance and into actual play, the unguarded, spontaneous variety, the connection acquires a quality of ease and mutual delight that can sustain a relationship through considerable difficulty. There is something about two people who can genuinely make each other laugh, who can be silly together without self-consciousness, that constitutes a real and lasting form of intimacy. At its highest expression, this overlay produces a relationship that feels, even in its ordinary moments, like a celebration. The sun person finds a context in which their identity is not just accepted, but actively enjoyed. The house person finds a presence that unlocks something in them, a capacity for joy, expression, and self-presentation that may have been dormant or simply waiting for the right audience. When this works well, both people feel more alive in each other's company, not just happier, but more fully themselves, more willing to take creative and emotional risks, more capable of play, more present to the pleasure of being exactly where they are. At its core, Sun in the fifth house in synastry is about what comes alive in us when someone makes us feel worth watching, and what we discover we are capable of when we allow ourselves to be seen with joy.
This was Sun in the fifth house in synastry overlays. Thank you for listening. Next, Sun in the sixth house.